So, in this week's show, with Mother's Day coming up on Sunday, we are going to talk about the logistics of fresh flowers. And I know that, especially after last year, my own mother had to throw together last minute holiday preparations because of last minute cancellations for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. So, this Mother's Day, considering that we weren't able to really celebrate it like we wanted to last year, this Mother's Day feels like we need to go the extra mile in order to celebrate mom. And then B, we need to get on the ball about getting those gifts in because feels so early. And the reason that it feels so early for Mother's Day to be occurring is because May 1st happened on a Saturday, and Mother's Day usually happens on the second Saturday of each month. And so because of celebrating the greatest logistician of all time, which is our moms, she's responsible for setting up the inventory management for our homes, transporting kids to and from work, going to work herself. She really goes above and beyond. So in this show, we're going to honor mom. We're going to pay some respects to her. And a lot of people are actually doing that this year because of some new numbers that are coming out from the National Retail Federation on how consumers are planning on celebrating Mother's Day. And last year, like I said, everybody was pretty locked down. So there wasn't a whole lot of celebrating going on, especially the traditional methods of going out to eat at a restaurant. That really didn't happen last year unless you were one of the few places that were actually still open, or maybe you got some to-go orders from different restaurants. But for this year, a considerable amount of consumers are going to be spending a lot more money than they did last year. So if you celebrated remotely or virtually for Mother's Day last year, now's your chance to make up for it. It's probably a little bit too late to order that Amazon shipment because e-commerce delays are happening everywhere. But this is how consumers are actually going to be spending their money. 83% of folks expect to celebrate Mother's Day this year, according to the National Retail Federation. And of those people that are celebrating, they're spending an average of $220. But what types of products are consumers buying? Now, obviously, a lot of that money is going towards food. It's going towards going out to dinner, maybe even some brunches. That it seems to be very popular within the restaurant industry for this year. Greeting cards were also big on the list as far as where people are spending their money. But those, if you notice this number, it's actually starting to slowly decline. But flowers are making a big comeback from their first ever dip in 2020. And it started making me question a little bit of why did flowers dip last year? And of course, related to everything else in the world, whenever COVID hit, supply chain issues affected everything. And that includes flowers, which has such a short lifespan from the time that they are picked. And so I ran across this article from Langham Logistics, and it says about 90% of all fresh flowers come from Latin America. And the minute a flower is picked, it begins to decompose. So this starts a race against the clock. So flowers are immediately cut, bundled, and processed early in the morning. All fresh flowers are cut first thing in the morning. And then they're placed on trucks where they chill the flowers to about 35 degrees. And so then they enter a state of dormancy. And so it prevents them from blooming, from wilting, and requiring too much water. Then the trucks take the flowers to a cold storage facility near the airport where they are palletized and stacked. And within 90 minutes, the flowers get loaded onto a chilled airplane, and each plane holds about 50 tons of flowers worth around $1 million, and the flowers hit the skies on the same day that they are picked. And so growers then package the flowers differently depending on the type of flower that they are. Most are put into sort of, a normal horizontal box, but then other ones are put into what's called a percona. And that almost looks like, it's basically like a big bin of water. And the flowers are placed standing vertical in that bin. And then there's a cardboard box that actually surrounds the flower themselves. So I thought that was interesting that there's two different methods of how to ship flowers. I would imagine that the more expensive flowers get put in the percona versus the latter versus the former, where some of those other flowers that maybe they're not as expensive, or maybe it's not the 3 dozen red roses that are maybe not going to be put into a horizontal package. They're going to be put in more of that expensive mode of transportation because water is heavier. So obviously the percona is going to make those transportation costs a little bit higher. Now, then the flowers, they're coming from Latin America. They're put on a plane bound for Miami, one of the hottest cities in the world. And UPS says that once they land, it only takes about 45 minutes to put them back into a temperature controlled environment. I believe we have an infographic that UPS created in order to show the journey of the journey of the flower from the time that it's picked in order to the time that it arrives on trucks and then transported over to Miami. So then they go through customs, they're shipped off to a large flower companies and wholesalers, where then the local shops will then start arranging them and handling that last mile delivery. UPS says that the entire trip from origin to destination takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, which I thought was really impressive. So from the time that they're picked to the time that they arrive at the local flower shop or the wholesaler shop is anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. So it's pretty incredible. And so it brings back a couple of other questions where what types of flowers are folks buying and where did this kind of all start? Why did we start giving out flowers as gifts? So a quick little Google search led me to see that beginning in early as the ancient Greek days, they associated flowers with beauty and they used them as offerings to the gods. And then ancient Egyptians, another ancient civilization, would also adorn their chariots with flowers before riding off into war. And they would also give them as gifts to lovers and gods to show their adoration. And then during the Victorian era, so during like the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptian times, giving flowers was more of a royal thing. It wasn't until the Victorian era that when it was sort of the common people that weren't allowed to show much emotion, they weren't allowed to communicate that often. So flowers became a way for them to communicate with other people. And so it was a way for individuals specifically in order to communicate with others. And so thus, the individual flower boom business started blooming. And so now back, flash forward to modern times, folks still uphold this tradition, but it comes in more of a variety of ways. Because as far as who is buying the flowers and what kind of flowers are they actually buying, from aboutflowers.com, 80% are giving fresh flowers. 40% are outdoor bedding and garden plants. 37% are flowering houseplants, and 23% are green houseplants. That's typically how people buy for Mother's Day and how they give out those flowers as a gift. Flowers are also scientifically proven to provide a moment of calm. And so research from University of North Florida right here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm based, the Department of Public Health shows that living with flowers significantly reduces our stress. So it's good news considering that 68% of people report experiencing stress weekly and 32% feel it daily. And so celebrating mom and helping to reduce her stress by giving flowers now makes a ton of sense. And I think after the year that probably most mothers had in order to go the extra mile to take care of their kids, I think a good bouquet of flowers will go a long way.